Your company ran 4 interviews. The background check came clean, references checked out. The LinkedIn profile was spotless, with a GitHub history going green all the way back to 2011. But the person on that call does not exist. The voice was modulated, and the face, that was a deep fake running through OBS Studio. And the typing you have seen, if you could see the real desk, it's a military base in North Korea. 25 minutes after that new hire's laptop powered on for the first time, they tried to deploy remote management software. This is the DPRK Remote IT Worker Network. Most coverage of this stops at the front door. How they get hired, how they bypass the interview. Sure, that's worth knowing, but that is just Act 1. The question that actually keeps CTI teams up at night is the one nobody briefs you on. What these people are doing once they are inside your network. The operation sits under North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, same parent organisation that produces the Lazarus Group. The specific wing is Department 53, also known as Bureau 53. Don't picture a hacking unit. Picture a state-run staffing agency whose only product is fraudulent labour. The UN Security Council panel of experts estimates around 8,400 operatives embedded globally. Roughly 3,000 of them are staging out of China and Russia, about 1,000 of them working from inside North Korea itself. The rest are spread across newer proxy cells in countries like the UAE, Nigeria and Laos. Revenue is the entire point. The UN puts the take at $250 to $600 million a year from this scheme alone. The US Treasury and the OFAC put a single fiscal year close to 800 million. Up to 90% of each operative's salary gets clawed back by their handlers and routed to the munitions industry department. That's the body that buys ballistic missile components. This is not an espionage operation with a salary attached. The salary was the entire mission objective. None of this tradecraft showed up fully formed. It took a slow grind and one global accident to assemble, and the same pattern tells you where the next pivot might be heading. 2011 to 2013. Early Kim Jong-un. The cyber posture is destructive, not financial. The 2013 Dark Soul attack wipes 48,700 servers and workstations across South Korean banks and broadcasters. The goal is destruction and disruption. There's no revenue model yet. 2016 to 2017, sanctions tighten under UN Resolution 2270. The regime pivots to theft. They compromise Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT access and pull out $81 million in one operation. Then in March 2017, North Korean banks get cut off from SWIFT entirely. The formal way to move foreign currency is gone overnight, and the regime needs a new pipeline. 2018 to 2020, the Freelance genesis. Clusters now tracked as UNC 5267, Famous, Kalima, and Wagamole start testing the idea on gig platforms. Stolen identities, basic web dev contracts, profits routed through Chinese intermediary banks. Small scale, but the model is holding and generating revenue. 2020 to 2023, COVID hits. Every company on earth goes remote first in a matter of weeks. Nobody's meeting engineers in person. Nobody's checking where they actually sit. The laptop farm, which only needs a domestic address and a local accomplice, suddenly becomes the dominant way in. Operatives stop chasing those $5,000 contracts and start holding 3 and 4 full-time salaried jobs at once. 2024 to now, the Department of Justice launches the RevGen Domestic Enabler Initiative and the arrests start flowing in. The network doesn't fold, it does 2 things. It moves geography into Germany, the UK and Portugal, and it changes posture from quietly collecting a salary to actively extorting the companies it's leaving. And it's the important shift in this whole story that you need to get ahead of. Forget a lone hacker in a dark room. What you're looking at is a manufacturing process, distinct stages, subcontractors, and quality control. Stage 1 is identity harvesting. They don't invent people, they buy real ones. Social security numbers, driver's licenses, passport scans, pulled from old corporate breaches and broker forums. A clean US identity costs almost nothing against the salary they'll extract with it. Stage 2 is the part most people miss. There's a whole sub-industry of account laundering. Operatives recruit college-aged Westerners over Discord, people who rent out a verified identity, sit a drug screen, or even show their face on a background check call for a monthly payoff. Stage 3 is the fabricated footprint. A large language model writes the CV and the cover letter. A Netlify site hosts the portfolio. The GitHub profile shows a decade of green squares, except the squares are fake. Unsigned Git commits let you set any author date you want, so a repo that looks like it came in 2011 was actually just compiled last year. You can query the GitHub API and the metadata to give this trick away. Now there's a second tell at this stage as well, and it's better than the first. The same boilerplate code keeps showing up, identical project descriptions, identical code comments, across what are supposed to be different candidates. Now, a human reviewer almost never catches it. An ATS system that compares resume text across your whole applicant pool catches it on the first pass. So, how did these candidates beat that video call and pass those interviews? There's 3 layers we need to talk about. Layer 1 is the face swap, Deep Face Live or Deep Live Cam, piped through OBS Studio's virtual camera. The operator's real face maps onto the stolen identity's photo in near real time. What the recruiter sees looks clean and legitimate. Layer 2 is voice. Microsoft's tracking of Jasper Sleep cluster documents real-time voice changes running to flatten out a regional accent. And then layer 3 is the one that should bother you the most. In documented cases like the Aidan Rainey accounts, there's a second person on the call you don't see. A handler connects to your candidate's desktop, listens to your interviewer's questions, and types the technical answers into a hidden notepad that the candidate is reading. Now, you're not interviewing the engineer who shows up on your codebase. You're interviewing a face-swapped actor who is just simply reading from a script. The deepfake gets them through the front door. What keeps them invisible once they're inside is a completely different technology, and it sits at a layer your EDR can't see. Christina Chapman ran her laptop farm out of a house in Litchfield Park, Arizona. To 100,000 TikTok followers, she made healthy eating videos. But to the 309 US companies whose laptops were racked up in her spare room, she was an invisible node in a state infiltration network. She was sentenced in July 2025 to 102 months, 8.5 years. Her farm processed those 309 companies, but earned 68 real American identities and generated 17.1 million. Nike's director of global investigations testified that the company unknowingly paid 75 grand over 5 months to a single operative running through her hardware. Other victims included a top 5 TV network, an iconic American car maker, a luxury retailer, and a Silicon Valley software firm. Her operatives even tried to place workers inside ICE and the Federal Protective Service. Here's the infrastructure that made that all work. The problem the operative has is to solve geography. Your EDR flags a login from an embargoed Asian IP block instantly, so they don't log in from there. They're not logging in from North Korea. They need a clean, domestic anchor, which is the whole reason the farm exists. The corporate laptop ships to a US address on a W-9, and a local facilitator gets paid a monthly cut, usually around 30%, to receive it, power it on, and keep it online. The remote access is the clever part, and it's the part standard EDR often misses. They use hardware like PyKVM or tiny pilot units. They plug straight into the laptop's HDMI and USB ports. The operative connects to that unit over the internet and gets a raw video stream of the screen. The KVM emulates a USB keyboard and mouse in its hardware, so when the operative types, the laptop just sees a locally attached HID device. Your EDR sees a locally attached HID device. There's no remote session in the process table. There's no odd outbound connections from the host. As far as the endpoint is concerned, someone is sitting at that desk typing. And because one person is running 3 or 4 jobs at once, they often install a mouse jiggler or something like Caffeine on their Mac OS. So no machine is ever sleeping, and every Slack or team status stays green around the clock. On top of the hardware, there is the network stack these guys are using. Tail-scale mesh tunnels link the overseas terminal to the farm's local network. Outbound traffic exits through Astral VPN, which shows up so consistently that it is effectively the in-house VPN for these operatives. Kudelski Security exposed the layer above all of that, a central state tracking server that every operative has to check into. The database tells you exactly what the regime cares about. It logs a corporate email and the stolen identity's details. It logs the machine's MAC address and Windows product key. It logs a military-style unit designation formatted as city-team number. And it logs a crypto wallet for their salary. Now the farm keeps them invisible while the salary flows in, but the salary was never the end state. What happens when you catch one of these guys and try to fire them is where this gets genuinely dangerous for most businesses. SecureWorks tracks the post-access behavior as nickel Tapestry, and they've documented since 2024 is a move from passive to coercive. While the operative is employed, they use their legitimate privileged access to clone whole proprietary repositories to their personal cloud storage. That is not incidental data theft, that is staging for what happens next. The moment you flag them for a bad performance or a mismatched detail and start the termination process, they move within hours. They contact you directly and threaten to dump your source code and trade secrets unless you pay them a 6-figure crypto ransom to go away. And this isn't a bluff because the data has already left. They have the control. By the time you're firing them, you're negotiating after the fact. And here's the escalation most boards aren't thinking about. An embedded operative has the access of a trusted engineer. That access has more than one buyer. Researchers have documented embedded workers installing persistent remote management components. Then they hand over or sell that channel, that access, to state-aligned destructive groups or ransomware gangs. When that handoff happens, nobody has to breach your perimeter. They have an open front door. They walk in using credentials your own IT team provisioned them on a device your IT team enrolled and encrypt the network from the inside. So here's the playbook. 7 concrete detection opportunities, each tied to where it lives in the kill chain. 1. Pre-hire, the GitHub commit discrepancy. Pull the commit metadata through the GitHub API before the interview. If an unsigned commit shows a 2011 author date against a recent committer date, that history has been fabricated. Flag it. 2. Pre-hire, resume clustering. Compare CV text across your whole applicant pool for a role, not just within one candidate. Shared boilerplate across different applicants is one operative rotating personas. 3. The interview. Deepfake behavioral tells. The face swap stack breaks on sudden movements. Ask the candidate to briefly cover their mouth or turn sharply. Watch for jawline slip, ear distortion, or hair boundary flickering. Those are occlusion errors, the template losing track outside its training envelope, and an opportunity for you to detect a deepfake. 4. The interview. The voice over IP and time zone mismatch. Cross-check the area code against the stated location and the interview slot they picked. A Seattle candidate on a New York number who booked an 8 AM Pacific slot at what will be 5 AM their time is worth a second look. 5. The endpoint. The LNX 777 pound hunt. Query endpoint telemetry for that display identifier. A hit means a hardware KVM is physically attached somewhere and you need to get to the bottom of it. 6. Network and process. Alert on Astral VPN egress from corporate devices. Flag tailscale outside approved use. Flag caffeine or any jiggler running as a process. An employee who needs software to fake activity is, at best, breaking policy, and at worst, running 4 jobs on your hardware. And 7. Behavioral, the payroll mismatch. The laptop farm makes the login origin look domestic, but the money trail doesn't always cooperate. A new hire whose device shipped to one state, who logs in from there, but who directs deposit routes to an account in a different state or straight into a crypto account, you need to look into. 2 things to carry into your assessment. First, the 2024 crackdown didn't shrink this network, it just relocated. EU organisations, particularly in the UK, Germany and Portugal, were the current expansion targets for this group, and both the FBI and CISA have updated their advisories to match this. Second, the early 2026 sentencing wave took out some capacity, but the underground account market kept running under new management. Here's the thread that I want to pull on next. Everything that made this threat so hard to catch came down to just one idea. The operative wasn't running malware. They were a trusted insider who used legitimate credentials and your tools. Strip out the deepfakes and the laptop farm, and that's the real lesson here. The most dangerous adversaries don't break in, they blend in. Now that is not unique to North Korea. There's another nation-state actor running that same logic against a far bigger target, and almost no malware to detect. This video profiles Vault Typhoon, China's pre-positioning operation inside critical US infrastructure like water, power and telecoms. These guys defeat detection the same way these operatives did, and blending in to normal traffic so completely that the average dwell time is measured in years, not days. If the DPRK worker showed you why trusted access is the hardest thing to defend, Vault Typhoon shows you what a state does with the idea when the target isn't payroll, but power. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more deep dives into threat actor profiles. I'll see you in the next one.